Welcome to the Explainer. Seriously, what if you could control the world around you with nothing more than a thought? Well, today, we're diving into the incredible technology that makes this very thing possible, EMOTIV's Brain-Computer Interface. I mean, just think about that for a second. It sounds like pure science fiction, doesn't it? But what if I told you that skipping a track on Spotify with just a smile, or piloting a real robot with a mental command like push, isn't just possible, but it's something people are doing right now? This is the wild world of brain-computer interfaces, or BCI. And look, this isn't just some theoretical concept. We're talking about real-world projects. Developers and makers are hooking their minds up to DJI robots, changing their smart lights with a whim, and even building out sophisticated science experiments. This is where your mind literally meets the machine. It's a whole new frontier. So, how does this all actually work? Let's get into it. Section 1. Controlling the world with thought. We're going to see how BCI turns pure imagination into real-world interaction. So at its heart, a brain-computer interface, or BCI, is, well, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a system that completely bypasses the middleman. Forget the mouse, forget the keyboard. A BCI creates a direct hotline from your brain's electrical activity, your brainwaves, straight to a computer, which then translates those thoughts into actual commands. So the very first step in this whole chain is actually capturing those brainwaves. So let's get into section 2, decoding your brainwaves. This is all about the hardware and the science of, actually reading what's going on inside your head. And it all starts with an EEG headset. EMOTIV has a whole range of them, from the Insight, which is perfect for consumers and developers just getting started, to pro-level stuff like the Epoch X. And then there's the Epoch Flex for really serious research. But the key thing is, no matter which one you pick, they all plug into the very same software ecosystem, usually with a simple USB dongle or Bluetooth. Now, here's where things get really interesting. How does the system know it's getting good, clean data? I mean, just slapping the headset on isn't good enough. EMOTIV uses this thing called an EEG quality score, or EQ. And it's not just a simple check to see if the sensors are touching your skin. No, it's a super sophisticated algorithm trained with machine learning that looks at the signal itself to see if it's high-quality brain data. So what's in that secret sauce, the EQ score? It's basically a mashup of 3 key things. First, you've got contact quality. That's the basic electrical connection. But then it gets way smarter. It uses machine learning to check the actual pattern of the signal. And finally, it checks if the signal is even strong enough to be useful. Bottom line, if all 3 of those aren't green, the system just won't trust the data. And for you, that means a much more reliable experience. Okay, so we've got the hardware and it's grabbing top-notch data. So now let's move on to section 3, the software behind the magic. This is the digital nervous system, the bridge that gets your brainwaves all the way to a usable command. You can think of the journey from your thought to an action as a 4-step pipeline. First, the headset grabs your raw brainwaves. Then, this thing called the Cortex service kicks in and acts like a universal translator. After that, you use the EMOTIV BCI app to train the system on your specific commands. And finally, your app, say the Spotify controller, gets that nice clean instruction like push or smile. So the easiest way to wrap your head around this is to think of those 2 key pieces of software. First, there's the Cortex API. That's the engine, the powerful universal translator that's always running in the background. It's like the central nervous system. Then you have EMOTIV BCI. Think of that as your personal gym. It's the app where you go to teach the system exactly what your push command feels and looks like. All right, let's talk about who this is for. Section 4, makers versus researchers. The EMOTIV ecosystem is really powerful because it's built for 2 very different groups of people. You've got the makers who want to build stuff, and you've got the neuroscientists who want to run experiments. Let's look at how they each use it. So on one side, you've got the makers and developers. Their whole goal is to build cool applications. They're using EMOTIV BCI for the training, the Cortex API, and all the open source examples on GitHub. But then, on the other side, you've got serious neuroscience researchers. They need super deep analysis, so they use a totally different tool called EMOTIV Pro for precise data and syncing with other lab equipment. It's 2 paths for 2 very different goals, all in one ecosystem. And this really nails it. That focus on the research path is so important. EMOTIV Pro isn't just about grabbing some data. It is a complete end-to-end platform that's built from the ground up to handle the demands of real scientific work, from designing the experiment all the way to analyzing every last bit of that EEG data. So, after all of that, you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, this is amazing, but how do I actually do any of it? Well, let's jump into our last section, Section 5, Your BCI journey starts here. We're going to lay out the path to your first project, and trust me, it's way more accessible than you might think. Honestly, the whole journey is a pretty clear 5-step path. First, you get a headset. Then you install the Cortex software and register your app online to get your secret keys. Then the really fun part. You train a profile in EMOTIV BCI to recognize your commands. Once that's done, you're ready. You can just grab some open source code from GitHub, plug in your details, and boom, you're building your first mind-controlled app. It's really that straightforward. So the tools to finally bridge that gap between our minds and machines, they're not science fiction anymore. They are here, they're accessible, and they are incredibly powerful. This technology puts an immense amount of creative power, quite literally, inside your head. And that leaves us with just one final, really exciting question. Now that you can do this, what will you create?